might have similar storylines going on here with the love that got away.
Not even close.
A couple of minutes ago, it was Leah and Lincoln, and now it's Abby and a man named Jesus.
That is the most dubious opening you could have given this. How dare you compare my religious trauma to Leah?
I mean, you guys
reuniting with the love of her life after 10 years.
You had a beautiful relationship with Jesus, then you ghosted him for 2 years, and now you're back knocking on the door, and you're afraid Jesus is not going to answer.
Jesus, where are you?
I see the similarities.
God's the one that got away. I'm so deeply uncomfortable with this. This is the rest of my life and for all eternity. This is not just some boy toy I dated in high school. Although some people do like to use the term date Jesus, which I've always found to be very uncomfortable and weird. They do? Yeah. Oh my God. You know how many sermons I've listened to where people are like, just enjoy being single, date Jesus. And I'm like, no thanks. Well, let's not do that.
You haven't been swiping right on Jesus for a while.
We really need to. People were mad that I was talking about my dating life too much. So they're talk about something else. So here I am trying to talk about something else. So let's talk about my relationship with Christianity, which is in a tumultuous spot. I have a weird time describing my relationship with Christianity because it is weird to be like, I was a Christian, but I'm like, do I consider it a past tense, or am I a Christian that's just doubting? I don't really know where I'm at, but kind of the long story short about my history with religion is that I was a Bible thumper for my whole life. And I think just as I've gotten older and I've just started critical thinking more, it just makes less sense to me, and I'm starting to second guess things in my life that I attributed to Christianity. And I've just decided that, I'm going to start from a clean slate and try and go from here.
What is your definition of Bible thumping for yourself? What did it look like?
Well, I was like super, super involved in the church. I mean, we were talking yesterday on the Personality Hires podcast about like our stereotypes in high school. And I was like, God, I don't really know what my stereotype was. And I can't remember who on the podcast said it, but they were like, were you a part of the God Squad? And I was like, oh my God, I was a part of the God Squad. Like I was a youth group leader and I went to church every Sunday and I went to youth group on Wednesday. And it was
Bible vacation study or vacation Bible study.
Vacation Bible school. My first concert was a Chris Tomlin concert. You know what I mean? Like I just kind of was living that life to the fullest because that's just kind of how I live my life in most ways. Like I'm either all in or I'm all out. And when it comes to the thing that, is supposed to dictate your whole life, I was pretty all in on that. I'd say that. And then I think I just got older and I've just reconsidered a lot of things in my life. I just kind of am like, I don't know if this thing that I've believed in my entire life is something that I actually believe, because I've never really had the opportunity to find it for myself because I've just been so deeply entrenched in it my entire life.
Were those things you were thinking before you moved to Atlanta, or was it as soon as you moved to Atlanta?
I think moving to Atlanta allowed me to have space because I was still so involved in the church in Jacksonville. I was a youth group leader for a group of high school girls, which I loved doing. But there is a pressure when you're in a leadership role that it's not that you don't have the space to doubt, but kind of leaving the church isn't an option because you have a responsibility to these girls. And by all means, like if I wanted to leave that position, I absolutely could have. But when you love getting to do that every week and you still feel like your community is also rooted in the church, it's not something that you can just kind of snap your fingers and say, okay, I'm going to give this a break. So I think when I moved to Atlanta and I was kind of waffling as to whether or not if I had faith or not, I think it gave me the space to be able to quite literally ignore it for 2 years. And I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of like, I should probably think about this a little bit more rather than just like shoving it down because it causes me anxiety. So I decided that because I've kind of ignored my faith for 2 years, and even though I say ignore, I think about it all the time. I think about it every day. I don't think there's ever a moment in the day where I'm not thinking about it, but it's never like fully formed thoughts. It's just kind of always there because I think when it's such a part of your life for so long and it dictates decisions and who you've become your entire life, it is so hard to separate who you are versus like the decisions that you feel like you've made because of this religion or this moral compass that you've had. Like in my mind, I feel like I'm always sort of cluing God in, even if I don't really believe that God is there. So I thought, if I haven't directly talked to God in 2 years, if I want him to answer, I should probably say hello. So I went to
his number.
I went to CVS. Yeah, well, it's funny that you bring that up. I went to CVS the other day, and I put this off until last night because even though I pitched this story for this week, I was like, I don't want to do this. This is a lot of emotional labor I don't really know if I'm prepared for. And I wrote this like 3-page letter, which I mean, I have massive like kindergarten handwriting, so I'm not really sure if that even means that much. And I just started doing this written down word vomit of just kind of like, I don't even know how to begin. Like, I don't even, like, hi, hello. Am I talking to you in first person? Do I talk about you, you being God? It felt a little bit like I was sort of avoiding it in my head. Like I was writing out a text, but not planning on pressing send, if that makes sense. And so I'm like talking to God in third person, like talking about God, but I'm like, no, I need to be talking to God. Like if I want him to answer, I need to press send. I need to talk to him. So then the tone of my letter kind of goes from like talking about him in third person to like talking to him and then back to third person because I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. And
how do you think he felt?
Probably big.
First of all, he can't even read your handwriting.
Probably big mad. Well, he gave me this handwriting.
That's a fact, right? That's a good comeback.
That's one thing I can't get surgery for. So think about that. Yeah, I mean, God's probably big mad. He's like, my son literally died for you, and you're just kind of like,
you left him on red.
That's some guilt. There it is.
Yeah, there's that religious trauma that's coming through. And yeah, I just kind of started the conversation and just
Were you mad at him? Were you inquisitive? Were you like, what was the overall tone, if you can put it into words, as you were communicating with him?
That handwriting says you were angry.
That's mean. I would say inquisitive more than anything. Okay. And it was weird because I don't think I've sat down to have like a full prayer, like sit down and be like, hey God, this is what's going on, in a long time. And I wrote in this letter, I was kind of like, I don't know, it's weird for me to journal and not pray, because that's what I used to do. I would pray and then I'd do my little journal thing. And I'm kind of like, oh, it feels like I haven't really dialed the number yet. I feel like I need to like pray. That's like how you pick up the phone to God. And so then I prayed, and it is weird how it cleared my mind. Like I felt like I had all these voices in my head, like this loud chatter. And then all of a sudden I like prayed. I'm like, oh, I feel like all these thoughts that have been in my mind and kind of circling around for a while, I'm like, they're kind of cleared out. And then I just put pen to paper and just started going off and just questioning why I've spent so long not exploring my faith. And I kind of didn't really, it wasn't necessarily anything profound. I didn't really come to any conclusions, but I just decided to make the request at every end of every letter and just say, I'm going to ask every day if you are real. And if you are, can you say hi or something? Like, can you just, reveal yourself to me in a way that will make sense? And who knows? And that's a scary.
Oh, there it is. Nobody even hit that.
Oh my God.
It came out of the computer all by itself.
Listen.
The way Abby jumped out of her skin just now.
He's married to like the right hand of Jesus. So if God was ever going to use someone for it to be a vessel, it'd be Tommy.
I'm really curious, Abby. So what would a sign be that you were looking for? Because I think that there are signs around us every single day that we're just not taking as the gifts that God has given us. You being here, you waking up, those are gifts. Like you doing this job, which I think is really pretty cool. You traveling, those are all gifts that I believe God has given you. So what is the sign that you're looking for that will say, oh, okay, dude is for sure real?
Well, that's your interpretation that it's a gift. Right. And so I think that 5 years ago, I would have felt the same way. And there's parts of me that feel absolutely the same way too. But I think just thinking about it from like a logical standpoint, you can interpret it as a gift, but I can also interpret it as, life. You know what I mean? Like who's this, like, why do I get this gift, but there are people starving across the world? Like, is God not giving them gifts? You know what I mean? It's tough for me to use that logic and not see everybody kind of the same way.
And I don't think you can answer that question. I think you shouldn't put expectations on the sign. I believe it's like one of those, you'll know when you know, but you can't put an expectation on it because Lord knows that expectations often don't get met.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know for me, when I asked for God to speak to me, it didn't come in the form of anything that I could possibly have expected or even thought would happen. But I do think that the universe, God, however you want to phrase it, has a way of getting to you where only you will know that was for me.
So that's why I asked the question. And that's a pretty scary existential question to ask. Be like, hey, this whole creation thing, be kind of cool to know if this was real or not. So if you want to just give me a heads up, God, I'll be here for the next 39 days.
Well, until that happens, he's giving you 10 minutes to prepare your entertainment bus.
Well, I've been preparing for an hour and a half, Jesus, so I'm ahead of the game. Can't get me.
The Bert Show.